Let me tell you, there are stories that just make you question everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and betrayal. This one, it's one of those cases that hits hard and doesn't let go. It's a chilling story of a young Kenyan woman, Irene Gakwa, who left her home in Nairobi, full of dreams, and vanished without a trace in the United States. But trust me, what I'm about to tell you will make you rethink everything you know about people's true intentions. Irene Gakwa was the youngest in her family, born to Francis and Joyce Gakwa in Nairobi, Kenya. She grew up in a close-knit household alongside her two older brothers, Kennedy and Chris. Even from a young age, Irene had a gentle spirit. She was the type of person who never raised her voice and always had a warm smile, no matter what life threw at her. For her, family was everything. She loved the little moments, like sitting around the table for tea and bread in the mornings or gathering for big family dinners over the weekends. While her brothers moved to Idaho when they were teenagers to pursue new opportunities, Irene stayed behind in Kenya to complete her education. She found work in the tourism industry, where she thrived for a few years. But in 2019, something changed. She decided to join her brothers in the US, this time with a new dream. She wanted to become a nurse. When she moved to Idaho, she lived with Chris and his wife, and their bond grew even stronger. They'd go out shopping, try new restaurants, and even take trips to the beach. Irene also started working at a nursing home, where she truly shone. Caring for the elderly came naturally to her. It was as if she'd found her true calling. At the same time, she enrolled at the College of Western Idaho, determined to earn her nursing degree and build a future for herself. It seemed like everything was falling into place. She was thriving in her new life, surrounded by family, and chasing her dreams one step at a time. However, everything changed in 2020 when Irene met Nate Heitman, an American man she connected with on an online dating app. At first, their long-distance love story felt like a fairy tale, filled with sweet messages and romantic conversations. But the magic began to fade when they finally met in person. Their relationship quickly turned turbulent, becoming an emotional roller coaster of on and off moments. Despite the chaos, Irene remained hopeful and determined to make it work. In a leap of faith, Irene decided to introduce Nate to her brothers, hoping they could all bond and support her new relationship. But Kennedy was concerned. He sensed something unsettling about Nate's behavior, perceiving a hint of manipulation in how he interacted with Irene. He also worried that Nate had influenced her to move in with him, suggesting that they couldn't continue dating while she was living with her brothers. Despite Kennedy's concerns, Irene believed in her love for Nate, and she ultimately chose to move in with him. The couple initially settled in Boise but soon relocated to Gillette, Wyoming, about 734 miles away from her family, in July 2021. This move was significant. It distanced her from the support system she had relied on for so long. As she settled into her new life with Nate, Irene transferred to Gillette Community College to continue her nursing studies, aligning her ambitions more closely with Nate's wishes. She wanted to believe that this new chapter would bring happiness and fulfillment, but the shadows of her brother's concerns loomed larger with each passing day. Irene had always made it a point to connect with her family back in Kenya, often calling or video chatting with her parents every other day. They cherished these moments, feeling close despite the distance. On February 24, 2022, she had a video call with them on WhatsApp that would linger in their minds forever. During the call, her dad noticed something wasn't quite right. He joked that she looked a bit tired and hungry, but there was an uneasy feeling in his gut. Her usual bright smile was absent, and her hair, which was typically neatly braided, hung loose and messy. He advised her to drink some warm milk and relax, completely unaware that this would be the last time he would see her face on screen. After that call, a chilling silence fell over their communications. Irene, who had once been so eager to share her life, stopped reaching out. Her dad sent texts filled with love, saying they missed her and wanted to talk, but her responses grew sparse. She would occasionally reply, saying that she was busy with work and school and would get back to them soon. This was unusual for Irene, who had always prioritized her family. Each unanswered message felt heavier, filled with a sense of worry, as if the silence was leading them toward a scary reality that no one was ready to deal with. Irene's dad couldn't shake the growing worry in his heart. She hadn't answered his video calls, and each unanswered ring felt heavier than the last. Then, on March 3, 2022, he received a text from her that gave him mixed feelings. She said she had accidentally dropped her phone in water, which explained why she hadn't been able to call or video chat. In her message, she wrote, "I just want you to know that I love and miss you and Mom." Her words warmed his heart, but the way she emphasized her love made him uneasy, as if she sensed something was wrong. As days turned into weeks, the worry only deepened for Irene's dad. She mentioned thinking about moving to Texas because she felt unhappy in Gillette. That wasn't like her. She had always faced challenges with determination. After a few more days, Irene's parents spoke with her brothers, sharing their concern about how she usually kept in touch but now seemed distant. Kennedy decided to reach out to her directly, hoping to get a better sense of what was going on. When he texted Irene, she replied quickly, saying she was just really busy with school and work. Kennedy reassured their parents that she would call them that weekend, convinced that everything was fine. But as more weeks passed without a word from Irene, worry crept back into their hearts. The silence grew louder, and the family began to feel the weight of their concern. Each time they checked their phones, they hoped for a message from Irene, but instead, they were met with emptiness. They were left with questions and fear, wondering where their bright and cheerful daughter had gone. What made this situation even stranger was the change in Irene's texting style. Normally, her messages were a mix of English and Swahili. Of course, as a Kenyan, she couldn't forget her Kenyan roots. But after February 24th, all her texts were suddenly in English. Another red flag during all this was that Irene had apparently quit her job at UPS via text message. She had also quit on the same day as one of her shifts, which was very unlike her. Irene was a loyal employee, the type of person who would go to work even if she had a birthday party or some event planned for the day. While all this was happening, Irene stopped contacting everyone. It was strange when her brothers received a text from her saying she wanted to leave the family cell phone plan and get her own. At first, they thought it was odd. Why would she want her own plan when being part of the family plan was much cheaper? Maybe she just wanted a new phone, they thought. But deep down, something felt off. As the days turned into a haunting silence, Irene's family stumbled upon even more unsettling news. On March 8th, they discovered that she had deleted her WhatsApp account. It was a gut-wrenching realization, especially since her last known activity on her phone had been just 4 days earlier, on March 4th. By March 20th, 2 full weeks had passed without anyone hearing from her, and the worry had grown unbearable. Her brothers decided it was time to take action. They contacted the police and requested a welfare check at Irene's last known address. When the police arrived at the apartment, they found Nate Heitman there, but Irene was nowhere to be seen. The officers asked Nate where she was, and his response sent chills down their spines. He claimed that on February 24th, after they returned from a local restaurant, Irene began packing her clothes into plastic bags. She supposedly told him she was leaving Gillette, tired of the town. The last time he saw her, he said, she was getting into a dark-colored SUV. At first, the police accepted Nate's story. After all, Irene was an adult. Perhaps she had simply decided to leave and start anew somewhere else. But her family, desperate for answers, felt a growing sense of unease. When they tried to speak with Nate, he wasn't cooperative. He even refused to give them any of Irene's personal belongings, including her Kenyan passport, which felt like another blow. His indifference toward her disappearance only deepened their fears, leaving them questioning what really happened to their beloved sister. It was as if a dark cloud had settled over their lives, shrouding them in uncertainty and dread, with every unanswered question feeling heavier than the last. When Irene's family confronted Nate about why he wasn't out looking for her, he brushed them off, refusing to engage. Instead, he hired a lawyer soon after speaking with the police, informing Irene's family that all communication would have to go through his lawyer from then on. This secretive behavior sent alarm bells ringing in the minds of Irene's loved ones. If he truly cared for her, why wouldn't he be out searching or cooperating with them? Feeling a sense of urgency, the police decided to dig deeper into Irene's life, particularly focusing on her finances. What they uncovered was nothing short of shocking. They found 8 separate transactions transferring money from Irene's bank account to Nate's through Zelle, an online payment service. These transactions began on February 25th, just a day after Irene's last contact with her family. In total, there were 2 transfers in February that added up to about $1,000, followed by 6 more in March that totaled $2,666. The investigation took a darker turn when the police discovered that the password to Irene's bank account had been changed on February 25th. To make matters worse, they traced the IP address used to make those transfers and changed the password. It belonged to Nate. This revelation was chilling. It meant he had accessed Irene's bank account, moved her hard-earned money into his own account, and effectively locked her out of her own finances. It painted a sinister picture of a man who may have manipulated and controlled Irene, raising even more questions about her whereabouts and what truly happened in the days leading up to her disappearance. The police investigation took a dark turn when they uncovered even more troubling information. They found 16 additional transactions made from Irene's debit card after February 24th, adding up to $604. The first purchase was particularly alarming. It included a shovel, a pair of boots, and some pants, all bought at Walmart on the very day Irene was said to have left. This wasn't just a coincidence. Surveillance footage confirmed that Nate had made these purchases, raising serious questions about what was happening. When the police executed a search warrant, they found those same items in Nate's home. It was becoming increasingly clear, after Irene's disappearance, Nate had been using her card and making purchases from his own devices, not hers. The evidence piled up. The other transactions, apart from the Walmart ones, were all online purchases traced back to Nate's IP address, further connecting him to Irene's vanishing. But the shocking discoveries didn't stop there. On Irene's credit card, police found 13 transactions made between February 25th and February 28th, totaling $804. Then there were another 27 transactions between March 1st and March 19th, which added up to $2,426. What was even more disturbing was that 10 of these purchases also came from Nate's IP address, while the rest were made in person. Strikingly, none of these transactions were made from Irene's devices. It was like he was living off her, using her hard-earned money without any regard for her well-being. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, the police discovered that Irene's credit card was maxed out at $3,100, with no payments made to cover the expenses. Her family's concern shifted to a deep-seated fear. It felt like Nate was not only stealing her money but also playing a sinister game with her life, hiding behind a facade of love while making choices that pushed them further apart. Each new piece of evidence painted a grim picture of what might have happened after that last video call, deepening the mystery of Irene's disappearance and the chilling reality of her situation. The police needed more information about Irene Gakwa's disappearance, so they got a search warrant to look into her Gmail account. They discovered that her account had only been accessed from Nate's IP address after the day she went missing. By March 10th, the account was completely deleted. Everything pointed to one disturbing conclusion. After Irene vanished, Nate wasn't just stealing from her, he was trying to erase her from the digital world. When the police questioned Nate about his actions, he offered a shocking excuse. He claimed he withdrew all the money so that Irene would have no choice but to contact him if she needed anything. It was as if he believed locking her out of her accounts would somehow bring her back to him. Yet, he never bothered to search for her or report her missing. His behavior became more and more suspicious, and as the evidence piled up, the police had no choice but to act. On May 4th, Nate Heitman was arrested on 4 felony counts, including 2 counts of theft and unlawful use of a credit card. Just a week later, on May 11th, he posted a $10,000 cash bail and pleaded not guilty to the charges. In the meantime, the Gillette police released a chilling statement. They were seeking information about a 55-gallon metal drum that might have been burned or abandoned in the area. Although they didn't explain what this drum had to do with Irene's disappearance, they had searched Nate's home for it and found nothing. The mystery of this drum lingered ominously, leaving many questions unanswered. As the investigation continued, troubling evidence surrounding Nate began to surface. After his arrest, police worked to piece together the events following Irene's last known whereabouts. They discovered that on February 24, 2022, Nate had purchased a 55-gallon drum. The next day, 2 neighbors reported seeing something burning in that same drum in Nate's yard. The police were concerned and wanted to know more about this drum, emphasizing that they weren't ready to share their theories about its connection to Irene's disappearance. In addition to the drum, the police sought information from the public about a gray or silver Subaru Crosstrek with an Idaho license plate. This car, registered to Nate, might have been seen trespassing on private property in a rural area between February 24th and March 20th. However, the police didn't provide any more details. Recently, Nate was sentenced to 3 to 6 years in prison for stealing from Irene, but the mystery of her disappearance remains unsolved. The search for Irene continues, but with each passing day, her family's hope fades, leaving them with more questions than answers. Irene Gakwa's story serves as a tragic reminder of how quickly life can change and how love can sometimes hide the darkest intentions. Her family and friends still hold on to the hope that one day they will find out what really happened to her.